your hands where I can see them.
I'm trying to help a patient.
We need to control this situation now.
This is an emergency. You can't do this.
You're under arrest. Hands behind your back.
Officer, look at my badge. I'm EMS. Please check before arresting me.
I'm not arguing on scene. We'll sort it out at the station.
Somebody's inside waiting for help.
In the quiet hum of an emergency room, surrounded by the urgent beeps of monitors and the hushed efficiency of medical professionals, Dr. Leah Jenkins had carved out a life dedicated to saving others. Her hands, nimble and precise, had brought countless patients back from the brink. Yet, on one rain-swept night, those very hands, trained in the delicate art of resuscitation, found themselves cupped behind her back, not by a medical emergency, but by the heavy hand of the law. The man who placed those cuffs was Officer David Vance, a rookie with the Sterling Heights Police Department. His record, even in its nascent stages, was already a troubled one. 11 complaints had accumulated against him in just under 2 years, a staggering figure for an officer of his limited tenure. 11 complaints. 11. They painted a disturbing portrait of a pattern, a predisposition to escalation and confrontation that would soon collide violently with Dr. Jenkins' unwavering commitment to her oath. Dr. Jenkins, a board-certified emergency physician, a chief resident, and a recipient of the city's prestigious Healthcare Hero Award, was on duty responding to a critical incident. She was performing her job, a job that often meant the difference between life and death. Her credentials, her experience, her very identity as a healer should have been her shield. Instead, they became invisible, dismissed, and ultimately irrelevant in the face of an officer's unchecked authority. This is a story not just about an arrest, but about the systemic blindness that allows bias to override evidence, about the thin blue line that sometimes fractures under its own weight, and about the profound injustice that can erupt when power goes unchecked. It's a story that asks us to look beyond the viral video and into the deeper currents of accountability and trust. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Your engagement helps us bring these vital stories to light. The night of October 27th, 2023, descended upon Sterling Heights, Michigan, with a cold, persistent drizzle. The city, usually a bustling hub of suburban life, was subdued under a sky the color of bruised plums. Rain slicked the asphalt, reflecting the garish neon glow of storefronts and the flashing blue and red of emergency vehicles like distorted watercolors. A biting wind whipped through the streets, carrying with the scent of wet concrete and distant exhaust fumes. It was the kind of night where most people yearn for the warmth and safety of their homes. But for emergency responders, it was just another shift, another call. Dr. Leah Jenkins, at 34 years old, was a beacon of calm and competence in the chaotic world of emergency medicine. Her journey to becoming a physician was a testament to grit and intellect. Born and raised in a working-class neighborhood of Detroit, she was the eldest of 3 children, instilled with a fierce work ethic by her single mother, a public school teacher. She excelled academically, graduating at the top of her class from Cass Technical High School before earning a full scholarship to the University of Michigan, where she completed her undergraduate degree in neuroscience with highest honors. Medical school at Wayne State University followed, where she distinguished herself not only through her scholastic achievements, but also through her compassionate patient care and innovative research into urban health disparities. After a rigorous residency in emergency medicine at Henry Ford Hospital, she was appointed chief resident, a rare honor for someone of her tenure. Her colleagues praised her diagnostic acumen, her leadership skills, and her unwavering empathy. She had published multiple papers in peer-reviewed journals, mentored junior residents, and regularly volunteered at free clinics in underserved communities, often on her days off. Just 6 months prior to this incident, the city of Sterling Heights had recognized her contributions, awarding her the Healthcare Hero distinction for her tireless work during the previous winter's severe flu season. She had earned her position, every accolade, every patient's trust, through years of arduous dedication and sacrifice. Her life was defined by service, by healing, by an unshakable commitment to the well-being of others. Officer David Vance, by stark contrast, had a professional narrative already steeped in controversy. At 26, fresh out of the police academy, he joined the Sterling Heights Police Department with an eagerness that quickly morphed into a pattern of aggressive and often unwarranted force. Internal affairs records, later unsealed, revealed a troubling trajectory. Within his first 6 months, Vance accumulated 4 complaints. One, from March of 2022, detailed an incident where he allegedly used excessive force during a routine traffic stop, slamming a motorist against their vehicle for questioning why they were pulled over. The complaint, filed by the motorist, described Vance as belligerent and unnecessarily physical. It was ultimately dismissed due to insufficient evidence, a common outcome that often emboldens officers. A second complaint, from July of 2022, involved an accusation of racial profiling. Vance had stopped 2 young black men walking home from a community basketball game, detaining them for nearly an hour, demanding identification, and questioning their presence in the neighborhood, despite their proximity to their own homes. The men, both students, stated Vance made disparaging remarks about their attire and attitude. This complaint also resulted in no disciplinary action. By January 2023, a third incident surfaced. Vance was accused of harassing a homeless veteran sleeping in a public park, reportedly kicking the man's belongings and threatening him with arrest for loitering despite no local ordinance prohibiting sleeping in the park. Witnesses corroborated the veteran's account, but again, the complaint was marked unsubstantiated. A fourth, and perhaps most telling complaint, arose in April of 2023. Vance was alleged to have intentionally provoked an argument with a protester during a peaceful demonstration outside City Hall, leading to a minor physical altercation that resulted in the protester's arrest for resisting arrest, a charge later dropped. The pattern was clear. Officer Vance exhibited a consistent propensity for escalation, a disregard for de-escalation tactics, and an alarming frequency of complaints that, despite their volume, never resulted in meaningful accountability. This unchecked history set the stage for the catastrophic encounter that would soon unfold. The call came in at 11:47 p.m. Dispatch reported a suspicious individual near an ambulance on Elm Street, actively attempting to access the vehicle. The caller, later identified as a resident peering through a Rain Street window, described a black woman in dark scrubs, moving with what they perceived as unusual urgency around the emergency vehicle. The call was vague, biased, and lacked any verifiable details of crime, yet was enough to dispatch Officer Vance to the scene. Meanwhile, Dr. Leah Jenkins was immersed in the critical, fast-paced reality of her work. She had just stabilized a 62-year-old patient suffering from a severe cardiac event, performing advanced life support procedures with her team inside the ambulance. The patient, Mr. Robert Chun, had experienced sudden cardiac arrest at his home, and the paramedics had brought him to the ambulance where Dr. Jenkins, who had been dispatched by the hospital for a critical care transport, was overseeing his transfer to the hospital. She had stepped out briefly to retrieve a specialized intubation kit from a side compartment of the ambulance, the rain plastering strands of hair to her forehead as she worked efficiently under the flickering streetlights. Her movements were precise, purposeful, and entirely legitimate. She was a physician, saving a life. Should officers be required to verify the credentials of medical professionals on the scene of an emergency, especially when no crime has been reported, before initiating any form of confrontation? It's a question that cuts to the heart of interagency cooperation and the implicit biases that can disrupt it. Officer Vance arrived on Elm Street at 11:53 p.m., his patrol car's headlights cutting through the gloom. He saw Dr. Jenkins, her back to him, focused on the ambulance compartment. Without hesitation, without observation, without even a simple question, he exited his vehicle. "Hey, you! Stop right there," he barked, his voice amplified by the rain-slicked silence of the street. Dr. Jenkins, startled, turned to face him, the intubation kit still in her hand. "Officer, I'm Dr. Jenkins. I'm with the hospital. We have a critical patient inside." She gestured toward the ambulance, her tone urgent but professional. She wore dark blue scrubs, a hospital ID badge clipped to her lapel, and a stethoscope draped around her neck. "ID now," Vance demanded, closing the distance, his hand already on his service weapon. "My ID is right here," Dr. Jenkins replied, pointing to her badge. "I'm the attending physician. We're transferring a patient." Vance squinted at the badge. "Anyone can fake that. What are you doing out here, really?" His tone was accusatory, dismissive. He made no move to verify the badge, no attempt to call dispatch, no effort to speak to the paramedics who were clearly visible through the ambulance windows. I am a doctor. I am retrieving equipment for a patient who is dying. Dr. Jenkins's voice rose, a tremor of frustration and disbelief entering her tone. Sir, you are interfering with a medical emergency. Interfering? You're the one acting suspicious. Turn around, hand behind your back. Vance ordered, his voice now laced with an undeniable aggression. What are you talking about? I'm a doctor. Look at my uniform. Look at the ambulance. This is absurd. She tried to articulate, to reason, but her words fell on deaf ears. You're resisting. I'm telling you to turn around. Vance grabbed her arm, spinning her roughly. The intubation kit clattered to the wet pavement. Dr. Jenkins cried out, not in pain, but in sheer shock and indignation. I am not resisting. I am a physician. You cannot do this. But he could. Within seconds, her hands were wrenched behind her back, the cold steel of handcuffs clicking into place. You're under arrest for obstruction of justice, Vance declared, his voice devoid of emotion, a stark contrast to the paramedics now pressing against the ambulance doors, their faces etched with horror. A small crowd of onlookers, drawn by the flashing lights and raised voices, began to gather, their cell phone cameras already recording the surreal scene. Just as Vance began to lead Dr. Jenkins away, a new set of flashing lights pierced the darkness. Sergeant Elena Rodriguez, a seasoned supervisor, arrived on the scene, having been alerted by the increasingly frantic calls from the paramedics inside the ambulance who had witnessed the entire escalating confrontation. She took in the scene, a respected physician in handcuffs, a rookie officer looking triumphant in a growing, agitated crowd. Sergeant Rodriguez approached Vance, her face grim. Officer Vance, what is happening here? Sergeant, I have a suspect arrested for obstruction. She was acting suspicious around the ambulance and refused to cooperate. Rodriguez's eyes, however, were fixed on Dr. Jenkins, who stood shivering, her uniform soaked, her face a mask of profound disbelief. Rodriguez recognized the hospital ID. Dr. Jenkins? What is he talking about? Sergeant, I am Dr. Leah Jenkins. I was retrieving an intubation kit for a patient in cardiac arrest. This officer arrested me for doing my job. Her voice was strained, but her gaze met Rodriguez's with an unyielding clarity. Rodriguez turned back to Vance, her voice low and dangerous. Officer, release her. Now. But Sergeant, she was resisting. I said release her, and then badge and weapon. You're off duty, effective immediately. The order was sharp, unequivocal, and delivered with an authority that brooked no argument. The crowd murmured, a collective gasp, and then a ripple of applause. The immediate resolution, however, was only the beginning of a much larger reckoning. Dr. Jenkins was released from the handcuffs within minutes, her wrists raw and chafed, but the emotional scars ran far deeper. She was not taken to precinct, not formally booked, but the damage was done. The arrest, however brief, was etched into her memory, a stark betrayal of the trust she placed in law enforcement, a harrowing interruption of her life's purpose. She immediately returned to her patient, her hands still trembling, but her resolve unbroken. Mr. Chung was successfully transported to hospital, his life saved, despite the egregious interference. Should officers who demonstrate a clear pattern of unwarranted aggression and disregard for public safety, especially during emergency situations, face automatic termination and decertification? It's a question that demands a definitive answer if public trust is ever to be restored. The Bodycam footage, released by the Sterling Heights Police Department just 48 hours after the incident, exploded across social media platforms with the force of a digital hurricane. Within hours, clips of Officer Vance's aggressive demands and Dr. Jenkins's bewildered pleas were trending on X, Instagram, and TikTok. The hashtags #JusticeForDrJenkins, #Arrested for Saving Lives, and #Police Accountability dominated online discourse. News outlets, both local and national, picked up the story, replaying the shocking footage and interviewing outraged community members. Within a week, the video had garnered over 50 million views across various platforms, sparking furious debates about racial bias in policing, the sanctity of emergency response, and the alarming lack of accountability for officers with documented histories of misconduct. The institutional responses were swift, though some argued belated. Dr. Jenkins, through her legal counsel, filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against the city of Sterling Heights and Officer David Vance. The lawsuit detailed claims of false arrest, unlawful detention, excessive force, racial discrimination, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. It argued that Officer Vance's actions were not isolated, but rather indicative of a systemic failure within the department to adequately train, supervise, and discipline officers with known patterns of misconduct. The suit sought compensatory and punitive damages, demanding not just monetary relief, but fundamental reevaluation of police practices. After months of intense public pressure, legal maneuvering, and the damning evidence of the Bodycam footage, the city of Sterling Heights reached a settlement with Dr. Aaliyah Jenkins. On March 14, 2024, the city announced a record-breaking settlement of $4.5 million. It was the largest individual settlement in the city's history for a police misconduct case, a stark admission of profound wrong committed against Dr. Jenkins. The very next day, Officer David Vance received his termination letter. The letter, later leaked to press, stated, "Your conduct on October 27, 2023, involving the unlawful arrest of Dr. Aaliyah Jenkins, a medical professional engaged in emergency duties, constitutes a severe breach of departmental policy, a profound failure in judgment, and a direct dereliction of your sworn duty to protect and serve. This action, coupled with your documented history of civilian complaints and disciplinary infractions, demonstrates an unacceptable pattern of behavior incompatible with the values and responsibilities of a Sterling Heights police officer. Effective immediately, your employment with the Sterling Heights Police Department is terminated. Simultaneously, the Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards, MCOLS, initiated proceedings to decertify Vance, effectively revoking his ability to serve as a police officer anywhere in the state. Months after the incident, Dr. Aaliyah Jenkins stood before a packed city council meeting, her voice steady and resonant, offering a powerful testimony that transcended her personal ordeal. "When I put on my scrubs, when I walk into an emergency, my only thought is the patient, their life, their well-being. That night, I was stripped of my professional identity, my dignity, and my freedom, not because I committed a crime, but because an officer chose to see a threat where there was only a healer. If this can happen to me, a board-certified physician, in uniform with visible credentials, actively saving a life, what happens to those without my education, my platform, my legal resources? What happens to the countless others whose stories never go viral, whose arrests are never captured on Bodycam?" Her words hung in the air, a profound challenge to the conscience of the city. This wasn't just an arrest. It was an assault on the very idea of public service, on the trust that must exist between citizens and those sworn to protect them. It laid bare the painful truth that for some, the uniform of a medical professional is not enough to override preconceived notions, to overcome implicit bias. Should an incident of this magnitude, involving a documented pattern of officer misconduct and an egregious violation of civil rights during an emergency, automatically trigger a federal investigation into the entire police department's practices and culture? The question echoes the urgency of systemic change. The department's internal findings, presented to the City Council, were damning. They acknowledged systemic failures that allowed Officer Vance's pattern of misconduct to persist unchecked. Specifically, the report cited a lack of robust de-escalation training, insufficient implicit bias training, and a critical failure in the internal affairs process to adequately review and act upon the cumulative weight of Vance's 11 prior complaints. The report concluded that the department's complaint review system was fragmented and ineffective, creating an environment where problematic officers could continue to operate without sufficient oversight or intervention. In response, the city of Sterling Heights announced a series of sweeping reforms. These included mandatory annual de-escalation and implicit bias training for all officers, the implementation of an independent civilian oversight board with subpoena power to review all use-of-force incidents and citizen complaints, and a complete overhaul of the internal affairs complaint review process, including a red flag system designed to identify and intervene with officers accumulating multiple complaints. Furthermore, the department committed to a new policy requiring supervisors to verify the identity of medical professionals on emergency scenes before any confrontation is initiated. The story of Dr. Leah Jenkins and Officer David Vance is more than just a viral video. It is a stark, cinematic depiction of how deeply ingrained biases can override even the most undeniable evidence. It reveals a system where a single unfounded accusation can dismantle a professional's credibility, where a badge can become a weapon of prejudice, and where the oath to serve and protect can be perverted into an act of oppression. The consequences were profound. For Dr. Jenkins, the trauma of false arrest and the erosion of trust. For Officer Vance, the loss of his career and reputation. And for the Sterling Heights Police Department, a multi-million-dollar settlement and a shattered public image. But what changes now? Beyond the headlines and the legal settlements, beyond the promises of reform, the fundamental challenge remains. How do we ensure that the color of a person's skin or the preconceived notions of an officer never again dictate the outcome of an emergency situation? How do we build systems of accountability that are proactive, not just reactive? One policy proposal gaining traction in communities across the nation is the establishment of a national database for decertified officers, preventing those fired for misconduct from simply moving to another jurisdiction and continuing their destructive patterns. Should such a database be mandatory for all law enforcement agencies? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. This story, like so many others we cover, is a testament to the power of community, of advocacy, and of the unwavering pursuit of justice. Dr. Jenkins' courage in speaking out, the public's outrage, and the relentless work of activists and journalists have forced a conversation that is long overdue. We're not stopping here. We will continue to shine a light on these systemic injustices, because ultimately, the fight for accountability, for dignity, and for a truly equitable society, it's about all of us.